Before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge my colleague who's online here today, Malcolm Miao, Munghe Miao. You can see him there. He's helped me with this AgriFutures Australia Fibre project that we conducted. It finished late last year, but we get to report the results now to you. Is there a clicker here? So essentially, I'll go through a little bit about what the project entailed, and you'll see some of our conclusions, and you'll be able to maybe weigh up those conclusions with what's already been talked about today and yesterday. A little bit about the fibre processing, some numbers around the yield that we got from those trials, the quality, and a quick review, and it might be a summary at this point in time because you've heard a little bit about fibre processing systems, but I'll give you a little bit of a heads up on what we think they look like, and it'll actually concur. I'm glad Chris talked about it in the way he did because about the difficulties because we see that there are some adjustments required too. So just before I begin, just to give you a heads up, so this data here is 30 years of data, and it was an analysis done on varieties, and it was this is for yield for cotton, and this is this is how you can manipulate yield. You can get 48% out of genetics, and then you get the rest out of management and the interaction of management with genetics. So 52% come from the way you play that crop. And then the fibre quality of that crop, this is only 1 year, and you can see there what the variation is for things like, can I point with this? Oh, I beg your pardon. No, yeah, I've jumped out. Can I jump back in? Sorry. Sorry, I pushed the wrong button. I thought there's a pointer here. I beg your pardon. This is fibre length, fibre tenacity, micronair is a fineness measure, and the elongation. And you can see what the genetics bring to that variety. And this is a number of varieties, but they're a finite amount. They're all highly related to each other, and you can see that environment will have a large effect, and that goes to those comments that Chris and others have made about retting, the way you sow the crop, planting densities, and all those things. They will all have an effect on your final fibre quality. This is for cotton, but it will be the same for hemp as well. We've looked at these sort of systems. This is just sort of give you a heads up on the systems that we've entertained in this project. For this project, we've used cotton ginning equipment, and we've used those systems. The two systems there in italics are the systems that we've used in this study, and the progression there is from some reasonable herd separation on farm to slightly better fibre sheath separation through to high-end, long, stable yarns. A bit about our study. We've collected straw samples. These are the samples up here, just on the right-hand side up here. You can have a look at them after the talk at morning tea, but they're the fibre samples that we picked up a container of hemp straw, and we've sent it to Canada to our friend Jan Slasky for processing through their system. Now, their system has these things, and we have talked about these over the last couple of days: guillotine, hopper feeder, a hammer mill decorticator, and then a fine cleaner. And this is the Alberta Intertech system. And you can see here that you can go around there twice, and you need to go around that twice to get fibre of about that. And so these are the fibre samples that are above on the desk just here now. You can have a look at them afterwards. And you'll see here, and I'll make a judgment on these, and you'll see the data that against which I'm making that judgment. You'll see, are these fibre samples good enough for the next stage of processing? And Chris, I'd like to take your point and get your comparison here with stuff that comes through your Tatham system, to see what they look like. If we'd have a quick conversation afterwards, it'd be yep. Anyway. And then we've gone through the gin process too, and this goes back to the gin study that Scott Davies talked about yesterday at the Carroll Cotton Gin. And this material here is the material that Jamie Milling and Ian Wise prepared, and it was fortunate during last March. I think we had 100 mil of rain just west of Tamworth, which was very handy because they dropped the crop into that, and the beaters in the gin process really did quite well in separating. But you'll have a look at the fibre samples here, and you'll see the systems within the gin are still not able to properly clean up the material, but you can, as Scott suggested, improve that situation with some investment. Anyway, so these are the samples. You can see them tabulated here. There's the top four seed grain samples out of Tasmania. There's a couple of biomass, and the last three are sort of biomass crops. The Hahn NE and Frog are out of Hepburn Ag, and the Ruby's out of Wentworth in New South Wales. Now, the important thing here, this is the material that's gone through the Alberta Intertech plant. And so we're looking at the fibre yield here. So an average of about 15% is about what you might get. You could improve it, I think. Chris, I think I'm going to keep referring to you, I'm sorry, but you could improve it through the Tatham system perhaps, or it's around about the same, I think, probably, in terms of that bast yield. The herd yield is probably about the same. But the important thing to note here is that this stuff's been through a guillotine, so it's been mashed through a guillotine and then mashed through a hammer mill. So you're going to lose fibre along the way. You're going to damage too much fibre. So there will be different decortication systems that might be a little more gentle. And then if you've billeted the crop in field and dropped it in the field, then you don't need the guillotine at the start. And Gary Rogers will attest to that too. You can sort of perhaps increase those bast and herd yields as well, somewhat. Down the bottom there, you can see the MS77 that went through the gin, and these are over 2 separate days. Actually, these were 3 weeks apart, and essentially this is the fibre yield out of the gin. So very similar to the other system, but noting that the gin lost a lot of stuff along the way through. It's a leaky system. And I've just got the numbers down there at the bottom. So that is the fibre yield out of a cotton gin. So that's when you're harvesting seed cotton, 50-55% is the weight of the seed. That's the heaviest part of the harvest, and then 30, 38, 40%. If you get over 40%, you're going well. It means you've got very little trash in your harvest. But 40% is fibre, straight fibre that goes into a bale and is exported. So here we've got the fibre quality of that fibre that's sitting on the desk there, and it's compared to, you can see the grey numbers there, or the grey points there. That is some standardised hemp fibre out of the La Roche system in France, where they prepare reference fibre. And so that's the straight line is according to those 7 samples there. And you can see, you can have a look here at, this is the micron here. And you can see where the micron is. Cotton typically is around 15 micron. Superfine merino is around 16 micron. The bulk of Australian merino is about 19 micron. Chris, I'm going to be rude and say New Zealand merino is a bit stronger. And nobody wants above 30 micron in wool anyway, unless they've got a woolen card that they're banging some hemp through. And then, so you can see there, and then you've got some commercial weed mat, and you can see this has had hemp or some sort of bast fibre in it, and you can see how fine that fibre is in that system. And this is these light blue dots. This is the stuff through the Alberta Intertech plant, and these black dots are where the gin process is. So that's quite a little bit instructive, actually, if we're thinking about, you know, the fibre that we're going to use or we're going to sell. We can say here that the Alberta Intertech plant or something like it will need, the fibre needs further retting or refining. A little bit of degumming along the way. I mean, if we took that fibre now and put it through another fine cleaner and then degummed it and pulled it apart again, we'd lose more fibre, but we'd get something a little bit finer again. So maybe that's a solution. But as Chris pointed out in his presentation, there's a little bit more work to be done here. Now here we've got we've got the fibre fineness distribution in those samples. Now, we were talking here about cotton being down this end, and you can see there's a little rise there. So this is where the primary fibres are. This is where the fine fibres are. This is where these contiguous sort of technical fibres are in this peak here. You know, these are just replicates. So you're seeing that the base fibre is really, or the median fibre here is around 40 plus microns. So very coarse stuff. A bit like glass fibre. So, and just to make a point there, that hemp is a good glass fibre substitute if you're talking about resin systems. So, you know, a long time ago, when we first started on this, we had a student who reinforced his surfboard. We occasionally get some European students here. They like the waves down this end of the town, and one of them got a bit bored with taking the bast off cotton stems. So we said, look, why don't you go and shape a surfboard and then reinforce it with a bit of hemp? And that's what he did. He did that very well. And so we had a hemp surfboard back in, well, that was 12 years ago now. So you can see that. So that's just going back to this graph here. That's the grain stem there out of Tasmania. And then I've just popped in the Harneni out of Smeaton. Now you can see here where the curve has moved. So this is a fibre crop. That's one thing. It's better retted, nice retting out at Smeaton, and you can see here that the separation has occurred, and we're starting to get these finer fibres come up. So you've still got that coarse end, and that will be common. And if we go to the reference fibre from La Roche, where they've prepared similar Harn fibre, I'm guessing. But now they've prepped it and they've moved everything from this end up to this end through the mechanical cleaning. So this distribution here is what you need to get if you're going to be preparing material or fibre for the apparel market and or the non-wovens market without any contamination of those machines. This is a bit complicated, so go over this graph when you get this presentation. But essentially, you've got this is the processed fibre here, and what we've done is essentially we've just we've put this through a fine cleaner. So you can see here, these are the, you can have a look here at the seed crops here, and when it goes through the fine cleaner, you don't get much fine fibre from it. So it's largely unretted, that grain fibre, and so you're not extracting much of that fine fibre from that. So you need to, and down here we've got much better retted stuff, and you can see the fine fibre coming out or being separated from those bast fibres there. And one of those is there's a little bit of stuff from Bob Doyle, who had some very well retted long stems, and then you've also got some Margaret River frog as well. And so the trick there was when we're fine cleaning that, the system that we're using quite liked the long fibres and was able to lick them onto between the feed roller and the comb, you know, the working cylinder, and it was able to work that fibre a lot better, and which is why you're getting this slightly better fine fibre yield. But you can see here, this distribution here will start to look a little bit more like this one. So that's the point there. And
Does that mean that you got 40%
Yep. So it's not particularly due to the frog, but essentially this is only on one passage through a fine cleaner, and it's material looking a little bit like this, and we've refined it again. And this is the blue bar is the fine fibre that comes through from that, and that fine fibre is here. So you've dropped it from. So when we say fine fibre, in this system, it's a fine fibre cleaner. So all the heavy fibre is dropped into the trash zone, and the fine fibre comes through to another zone. So this is just that capture point. So it's a little bit sort of. It's not a standardised test, but it's a test that we use just to see where the fibre is. But you can see there that the fine fibre is a lot finer than the fibre that it's come from. So it's, in some cases the better retted stuff is dropped sort of 5 microns, and that's sort of where you need to sort of start putting your fibre. Or, when you're thinking about that process, you've got to think about how it will travel through these fine cleaners. Now, the point here is that was one fine passage, but if you're putting it through the LaRoche system, you're putting it through a progression of these fine cleaners. You're starting coarse, and then you're getting finer and finer, and you're carrying that as much fibre along with you as you can. You don't want to drop it out. You want to keep working it. So this is only one passage, so the yields will be higher with a system. So just some conclusions. At the moment, through the Alberta Intertech, it was just too coarse for spun yarn, too contaminated with hurt for most non-woven, and that goes back to that fine cleaning. We didn't have it, and you can see there the other conclusions that I've made. And then these are the gaps, and we're all aware of those gaps. And that's it, I think. Yeah. Just lots of people to acknowledge. Thank you.